All right, so never a boring day in these markets. Bitcoin managed to top out at about 83.5, which is fantastic. This is actually a kind of zone. It's a little bit higher than the zone of resistance we were looking for, but still a very, very good sign. We are actually maintaining a series of kind of higher lows, only just higher lows, but also higher highs. But what's more important than all of that is that this is also happening on the S&P 500. So we have a lot to talk about today. As usual, it's going to be a very grounded, realistic piece of analysis, as you always get. If you appreciate that, do me a favor and smash up those likes. And getting straight into it, obviously, we can't analyze crypto without first analyzing the stock markets. Today is obviously Thursday, so there's one more day of trading after this in this week, and this has been a very eventful week so far. If we take a look at this weekly candle right here, which is nearly complete, there's only a day and 4 hours left. This candle ended up opening much lower than the previous close, but it has recovered all the way up to capture a little bit of resistance up here at about 5,500, and now trading a little bit lower. So far, this is just again a series of higher lows and higher highs. And I know that the anti-Trump people are going to hate that. They hate the fact that there's more stability in these markets than they wanted. But the truth remains the truth regardless of your political dispositions. Now, if we continue on and look at this a little bit closer, we are actually doing pretty well here. Now, this is a classic bearish pattern, okay? This is highly likely to break down just by looking at its shape. We'll get into the other likelihoods in a second, but just by looking at its shape, we're basically doing the same thing that we did over here, and we did it over here, okay? And the reason I'm pointing these two out to you, even right here, very, very small, the reason I'm pointing these out to you is because you do these patterns with different shapes and different sizes, but they are still valid nonetheless, okay? And that's a really important thing for us to keep in mind with this market right now, ladies and gents, because a lot of people are taking things out of perspective, and just overly sensationalizing things that, don't really need to be sensationalized the way they are. The fact of the matter is we're trending up inside of a downtrend. This is your typical bearish pattern that might be ready to catch a little bit of resistance and drop lower, okay? So there's some resistance right here at about 5,300, which the S&P 500 is only just getting to, and this does line up with Bitcoin's $80,000 price level. So we come back to Bitcoin for a second and we go back to traditional finance because there's still a lot more we have to talk about with regards to Trump, of course, all of the kind of turbulence in the markets. But, with what we're seeing on Bitcoin right now, this was effectively a double bottom at about $75,000. The interesting thing that's happening is that bears are not getting what they want, right? When we're kind of sweeping lows, other than kind of this initial one, which we were definitely expecting, we're not really sweeping lows by any kind of substantial margin. And I would like to remind you that this is exactly what happened on our highs for quite some time, okay? If we kind of really zoom out on this chart, look at this thing on the weekly, this is the characteristic of our market cycles for quite some time now, where, you set an all-time high and then you only get slightly higher than that. And then we did it again over here, right? Initial all-time high right here, and then a slightly higher all-time high. Just a frustrating kind of series of movements in the market. We're doing it on the downside now as well, okay? Which is really important. Pardon me, guys. I'm a little bit under the weather today. They got me, but this is important because when bears aren't really getting what they want, you are starting to look at some potential reversal patterns, and I want to draw your attention to that right now because absolutely nobody is talking about this, and that's okay. We don't need everybody to talk about it. It actually makes us a little bit stronger, but we are seeing right now a kind of pretty clear situation where Bitcoin might be starting to develop a little bit of a kind of falling wedge pattern, okay? And these are actually inherently quite bullish. So it's interesting. And, this is the kind of nuance that, honestly, a lot of people really, struggle with. I mean, that's okay. It is what it is, right? But, you can actually form kind of short-term bearish signs, or in this case, the S&P 500 was a little bit more clear as being bearish, with longer-term bullish signs, okay? And the reason I'm saying this is bullish is it's essentially a display of momentum, right? I don't look at RSI, but if we go ahead and, kind of throw the RSI up on this chart right now, what you're going to see really quickly is that we are actually kind of close to neutral. I know this without even seeing the RSI. I could be wrong. Let's see. It would be embarrassing. But, we're going to see that we're either pretty close to neutral or even kind of, we'll just see. Let's just let this thing load up and look at that. We're at 43 right now and neutral is 50. So, pretty clear right now that this RSI reading, is showing us the very, very same. And we can see it pretty clearly, right? I mean, we can see that pretty much from the point that Bitcoin kind of dropped down, we have seen it kind of slowly kind of trend up with its RSI. If I kind of just draw a line of best fit, a line that kind of, generally kind of correlates with most of what's going on, we are like ever so slightly kind of trending a little bit higher right here. And that's, the RSI, let's break it down. A lot of people, learn about the RSI and never really know how to use it. The RSI is the relative strength index, okay? So in other words, if the RSI goes up, the relative strength is high. If the RSI goes down, the relative strength is low, or there's a little bit of relative weakness, okay? The reason that that's important is because a lot of people see an oversold RSI and they're like, okay, this thing has to drop. Well, you would have been an idiot, okay, if you took that approach, because you would have had to start selling over here. And that's literally before the thing popped, okay? So we need to keep this in mind very, very much. A high RSI, look at this. Look, the RSI peaks right here. This was not the peak of the price. In fact, the price ended up going up by another 20% or $17,500. Okay, so anybody that's kind of basing their analysis off the RSI, they're most likely using it in the bad ways that I'm demonstrating right now. And it's just completely counterproductive. Okay, and you're going to see this with countless examples. There are exceptions. Sometimes you get an oversold RSI, but here we kind of entered oversold right here at about literally a price level of, what was this? This was like $89,000. We entered oversold, and we exited oversold when the price was actually at about 85. So, it's just misleading. It represents an absence of strength or an abundance of strength, okay? And that's going to be a little bit of an indication of what might be coming next. Really, really important. I don't talk about the RSI that much because I don't like it, because of how badly people use it. But I know that many of you guys watching probably use it as well, and hopefully you found that useful. If you did, smash up those likes, double check, of course, that you are subscribed. And I do want to let you know about a really, really cool opportunity on Bybit right now. Obviously, one of the best exchanges in the game. You already know it's going to be linked at the top of the description. Standard procedure, ladies and gents. The really cool thing about Bybit is right here with this event that ends in about 3 weeks, you have Liquidity Shield Trading Frenzy, which is basically a trading competition. You trade, you make money, you get additional money, based on your trading, which is really, really cool. But the cool thing about this one that makes it a little bit more unique is that any slippage is covered up to 10 USDT per trade. So check it out if you're interested. There's a lot of eligible pairs right here, and you can get inside by following that link in the description. You get a ton of free cash when you start trading using this link down below. And you're going to get even more in prizes if you qualify for them with this competition right here, which is super, super cool. So check it all out if you're not from a restricted region, okay? If you're from countries like the UK, USA, you can't use this stuff. But if you are from a more free region that does not financially oppress you so much, then you can go ahead and check that out. Super, super cool there. In terms of that opportunity. Moving it back to the market, though, of course, this falling wedge does definitely, I think, represent a potential for the market to move up. We can see that with the RSI, where the RSI is now gaining a little bit of relative strength. So this is telling us with a hidden sign. This is called a hidden divergence, where the price kind of drops down and the RSI moves up. This is called a hidden divergence. You can Google that and check that out. That's going to be a sign that actually the market is gaining a little bit of strength, and you might be able to see a little bit of a breakout to the upside there. So that's something we're going to keep an eye out for as we continue going on in this market over the next days and weeks, but probably just days. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you can stay tuned for that. I do think that, if we remove these and we start looking at this chart kind of just for what it is, a little bit smaller, a little bit kind of smaller in terms of time frame. Like I said, double bottom right here. Bears are not getting what they want. They're not kind of able to drop the price as low as they want it to drop, which is, probably a little bit frustrating. This is a struggle for me. I don't think I can go on for much longer in this video. It's just not looking good, guys. But I think that a little bit of a kind of bounce down at kind of 71 is still very much on the cards. This really depends on Trump, and it depends on Trump rugging the markets basically. Obviously that's gone pretty badly over the recent weeks, and if that kind of continues, then we are going to be in trouble. It is worth noting. I think a big question is just how much pain is Trump willing to kind of tolerate for this. One of the things that we've seen with this tariff news right now is that he basically took most of them off and just kind of kept the exorbitant ones on China. And so that's why we ended up seeing a bit of a recovery right now. I don't know why we're panicking. It's just all a bit silly right now. But, the market's kind of, just kind of digesting what it's digesting. There's, not a whole lot more that I would kind of read into this. I wouldn't want to kind of, blow this out of proportion. It's just a market that, literally just cratered by 21.5%. It retested the previous all-time high, which, by the way, nobody's talking about. You won't see this on CNBC, will you? But it did retest the previous all-time high, and it's now bounced up a little bit. So really, for me, as long as we hold this level, we're pretty good. If we don't hold this level, then this could turn into a multi-week, multi-month issue. I don't think it's going to be substantially longer than that. I'm also cognizant of the fact that it is America's 250th anniversary of its life of independence. Next year on July 4th. So first of all, shout out to my American friends and viewers. Really, really big, cool achievement. What an amazing country you have after 250 years. Not many countries can be as great as America has achieved in 250 years. Everybody's got their criticisms of it, but it is still definitely one of the best places in the world to live in, partially because it's a continent, not just a country, really. So very, very cool. Huge congrats to those of you celebrating. Well, it's going to be next year, but I think because of that, there is going to be a real expectation for Trump to unfuck these markets by then. And that's why I don't think they were looking at something particularly long. I think for Trump, the fact that, he's an ego-driven person, a little bit of a narcissist, a couple other things, he is going to want quite an explosive celebration for, the 250-year mark. Quite a historic period, right? Quarter of a millennia, right? I don't know. I think so, but definitely something that I think is a little bit cool. So, that I think that we're good from that perspective. But like I said, losing this level at about 48.40, I think would be a big problem for the S&P 500. And it would potentially send us a little bit lower for a little bit longer. As long as we can hold above this, we're good. And it's really hard to say if that might happen, right? I mean, again, this is just entirely a tariff-based question, a Trump-based question. It can, he can change his mind at any point. What I do expect is that when you get kind of turbulence like this, and I've been saying this for a while, when people kind of shake up markets like this, everybody doesn't like it because humans are creatures that crave comfort, and familiarity, and when we lose those things, we start to have problems, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. But believe it or not, I don't know. I'm probably getting a little bit of flack for this, but I don't really care. Trump is 2 times the president of the United States, and an incredibly successful businessman before that, despite the bankruptcies and stuff like that. That's just part of the game. People that kind of say that, he went bankrupt don't really understand how money works, but that's okay. They can just keep voting for Kamala. But but yeah, no, the truth is that, whether or not you like him or not, he is smarter than both you and I. He's a hell of a lot more successful than you and I. And if you contest that, then I don't see why you're not prime minister or president of your own country, right? So sit down, sir. What color is your Oval Office? You know what I mean? It's just not. It doesn't work that way. And because of that, I don't really think that that this is damage that's going to last. I think that this is just kind of the market's getting shaken up a little bit. There's going to be a new normal. It's going to be a normal which is actually more advantageous to America, I believe. I put out a really, really interesting kind of analysis piece, I guess you could call it, on this exact topic, and I want to show it to you right here. Let me just pull up x.com, pull up my shit posting profile right here. What you're going to see right here is, where did I write it? It was a little bit lower. Let's see if I can find it. I've been tweeting a lot recently. You guys can check me out on Twitter if you want to if you want to see what's going on there. But I don't know where that tweet is right now. But basically what I said was that, the U.S. is going to suffer for this, but I believe that the rest of the world is going to suffer more. It must be around here, right? Yeah, right here. I think the results are pretty straightforward here. The whole world turns inwards. USA suffers because stuff isn't so cheap anymore. The rest of the world suffers more because they were geared toward 340 million American customer distribution. They reorganized to trade among themselves, and then they realized that nobody else can plug the gap that the USA left behind. So they come back like putty, ready to negotiate anything that Daddy Trump wants. Meanwhile, the USA stands more independently for all of its production needs and has even more leverage over poorer countries that need to trade with the USA. Now, about 80% of this has already happened, and I only wrote this 2 days ago. So that definitely tells you something. A lot of countries at the negotiation table, China getting screwed a little bit. This has already mostly worked, and I think that's why he kind of reversed the tariff talk. Clearly, he is a brutal negotiator. And that's no surprise. This guy did make it to president again twice, 3 times in a row, really, if you count the election fraud of last time. And so, he's he's dangerous, right? Like, he's not the kind of person that you want to be in a negotiation with, and he's clearly shaking things up. But like I said, I don't believe that this is going to be something that particularly has a lasting impact. And as an extension, I think that this is going to kind of resolve itself. We're going to find a new normal. We're going to find a new level of kind of consistency in these markets. But I think that's going to depend a lot on losing this level. If we don't lose this level, then we're pretty much kind of out of a lot of this shit now, potentially, right? We might not have particularly long that we have to continue to suffer for. But if we lose this level, it's probably going to get a little bit more painful. As it stands right now, with my naive understanding, I don't think that we're dropping below this level. I don't think that Trump would want to. It looked like kind of as things were starting to drop down, even big man Bibi from Israel ended up flying into the White House and checking on Trump. And I don't know what they were talking about, but my guess would have been, like many other world leaders and billionaires in the United States, that they were just telling Trump to fucking knock it off, because they were all going broke. So, again, I think that could be a factor as well. I do want to point out gold, which is now setting a brand new all-time high. Absolutely fantastic. It set this all-time high today, and it is well on its way to my target of $3,600. I told you guys about my buy somewhere in this range. I can't remember where it was, but I've been very, very bullish on gold for a while. I'm still very, very bullish. When gold starts coming down, we might actually start seeing a lot more kind of economic flourishing for people. But, this is going to be obviously a fairly direct indicator of people having, some level of uncertainty and fear with, the situation on the global stage right now. Here's the dollar, by the way, just dying right now, which I don't know. It is what it is. I did check out the Chinese yen against the dollar, and it is apparently at like an 18-year low or something against the dollar. I mean, obviously, like, by the way, just to be clear, the more this goes up, the more this means basically you need 7.3 yen to buy $1. Back down here, it was 6.7 yen to buy $1, right? Just to give you a kind of point of comparison. And if we do take a look at the yen, I think this is actually going to be one of the more interesting things to kind of trade. This is a pretty high level now for the Chinese yen, and if this is indeed the high, then this is a high that we haven't seen going back to 2008, which I'm going to hurt your feelings here, but 2008 was about 17, 18 years ago now. So, shit. Shit. But not looking good for China, man. Really not looking good for China from this particular perspective. We'll see how this goes, but things are definitely getting shaken up. Get used to it is all I can say. I don't think that this is going to be something that settles down. It's going to be pretty nonstop for the next 4 years. I think you might have kind of periods where it's a little bit less interesting, but for the most part, I think things are going to stay pretty explosive for a while. They're probably just going to get a little bit more manageable, a little bit more kind of easy for you guys. I do have some other slightly more crazy theories. Trump did literally call the Pico bottom and told all of us to buy on that bottom, which I thought was particularly interesting. I'm asking for when Trump is going to release his signals group. He posted right here, and then he took credit for it, by the way, which is brilliant. Right here on the S&P 500, that it's a great time to buy, and that was the bottom. So the reason I found this interesting is I think that, this market manipulation, I want to call it market manipulation because it kind of is, probably screwed over a lot of institutional and large short sellers. But there's going to be a cohort of people that just blindly obey everything that Trump says. And they would have actually made a lot of money. There was actually a huge opportunity to make some huge cash at that point when Trump said it was a good time to buy. And I'm just wondering, with the AI revolution, it's kind of a crazy theory, but with the AI revolution and everybody's going to be potentially losing their jobs and whatever, maybe Trump actually wants people to move into the markets. And this aligns with his actions to me, right? The White House executive orders for the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, his family, starting up a crypto fund right before his inauguration, the meme coin that he released and his wife released, this that we're seeing right now. I think there's a lot of evidence that he wants the kind of population to be a little bit more engaged with these financial markets. And maybe it's because, what the fuck are you going to do when you lose your job to AI, right? Like, a lot of people are not going to be pivoting to, an entirely different career path. What if you're like 40 plus, 50 plus? You don't have the willpower, let alone, desire to, just like start new and figure something else out. And you got like 20, 30-year-olds, teenagers competing against you, who know how to use it. It's just, I think it's going to get really difficult. And I'm wondering if as a result, he wants people more engaged in the markets. It wouldn't surprise me. It's a little bit of a crazy theory, but I don't know, like it kind of just makes sense to me, right? Like it just clicks. I want you to let me know in the comment section. This is genuinely something I'm very, very curious to know your thoughts on. So please do let me know. But if we do look at these altcoins, Trump has lost a little bit. Ethereum against Bitcoin has slid below 0.19 BTC. It is so close to my ridiculously low buy level for Ethereum here. I still haven't bought. I wanted to, but like, just look at this thing, man. I think it could go a little bit lower. So, I mean, we haven't seen these levels going back now 1,900 days, basically going back to about February of 2020, right before that crash. So, weird time, ladies and gents. Definitely a weird time. Here's XRP. I think this is particularly interesting because there could be some short opportunities opening up on this chart right now. I think that some bears are probably going to be looking to take some shorts on. We'll see how that goes. I don't really know. And then, of course, Bitcoin's dominance is quite high and looking poised to continue going up. This is on the daily time frame right now. So as far as it goes, I mean, yeah, resistance up here for Bitcoin. If we break it, we might be able to break a little bit deeper into this range, but there's still more resistance up here at about 88. If we lose these levels that we're at right now, and especially if we lose these local lows, then we are probably heading back down to the very low 70s, very high 60s. And I don't know. I don't think there's going to be much more carnage beyond that. Again, it depends on the S&P 500. If the S&P 500 loses its critical level, this low that it's at right here, it's pretty screwed. It's going to be pretty bad. But if it doesn't, then it's going to be all right. So with that, ladies and gents, hope you've enjoyed this video. You know what to do. Smash up those likes, subscribe, hit the bell. Check out that beautiful campaign run by Bybit right now. And that is going to be linked probably at the top of the description. And again, only if you're not from a restricted region. Thank you very much for watching. See you all in the next one. Cheers.